It's great to see you back for part 3 of this video series. This is Jensen with the Toonheads, and we're diving into another essential element of caricaturing noses in side profile. A good characteristic to look out for, known as direction. In the previous video, we did a deep dive on finding the general shape and how to draw the sections of that general shape. If you have yet to watch that video, I would highly suggest watching it and seeing this video series in its entirety. And for part 3, we'll be covering the direction of the nose. Essentially, direction refers to the angle at which the nose extends from the face. It can point straight out, tilt downward, or angle upward. Understanding the direction of the nose will help you a step further on finding how to draw your subject's unique nose. So let's hop on over to the drawing desk and get started. So to start, I'm going to draw 3 simple head shapes. And I'm going to use a Copic marker, red, just to do these head shapes. And this gives you a good perspective of how the nose will look in side profile. The direction of the nose can either go straight, up, or down. So let's do 3 different versions of that. So for this variation of the nose going straight out, we'll go ahead and just do a square shape. And for the nose going up, we're going to use a circular shape. And for the nose going down, we're going to do a triangular nose. Now let's go ahead and break these up into sections using a Crayola marker. So we're going to do the bridge, the bulb, nostril, wing. Okay, so let's do the rest. I have noticed that you can really exaggerate the direction of the nose further, and it will still resemble your subject. You don't always have to be precise. Sometimes an exaggerated impression of what you see works better. So don't be afraid to push direction more than you would usually. Remember, if you're still able to capture likeness and exaggeration, you've successfully drawn a caricature. Now that we've explored direction, the next step is understanding protrusion, which is how far the nose extends from the face and how different sections of the nose can stick out more than others. This is where we start adding real depth to our caricatures, so stick around for more caricature tips and tricks. I'll see you around for part 4. And with these 3 different variations of variations